3 sinister true stories. Haunting encounters that exposed the terrifying unknown in the woods. The dense woods outside Maple Hollow held secrets darker than the shadows between the trees. Sarah shivered as she pulled her kids closer, the whispers of the forest wrapping around them like a cold embrace. Here, every rustle of leaves felt like a warning, every snap of a twig a portent of doom. "We can make it here," she told herself, trying to drown out the fear creeping into her mind. But as night fell, and the darkness inched closer, the woods seemed to breathe, exhaling forms only half-formed, specters of families long lost. It started simply enough. The chirps of crickets some nights morphed into murmurs, soft and beckoning, rising with the mist that climbed from the forest floor. Then there were the trees, their bark adorned with strange, twisted symbols, carvings that felt alive, watching with eyes that were not eyes. Sarah could almost hear their stories, tales of despair woven into the very wood. All around her, the world closed in, folding like a nightmarish origami. Days turned into an eerie monotony. Sarah tried to craft a new life. They'd bake cookies, tell stories by the fire, but the laughter faded quickly, swallowed by the overbearing gloom. A storm swept through one evening, confining them to the cabin, and the shadows outside whispered louder. The trees twisted in the wind, taking on menacing shapes that danced just beyond her view. Her heart raced as her children fell into nightmares, their breaths shallow and rapid, filled with echoes of laughter morphing into screams. When she ventured into town, hoping to find some sense of community, she was met with raised eyebrows and soft jeers at the sheriff's department. They dismissed her fears. "Just your imagination, ma'am. It's common to feel anxious when adjusting to a new place." As they chuckled, she felt the weight of isolation settle like a cold hand on her back. This town, this retreat meant to be a new beginning, was a cage. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The storm raged on, an unrelenting force that reminded Sarah of her own unraveling. As she peered through the rain-smeared window, her children recounted stories of shadowy figures lurking beyond the tree line, figures caught between the realms of life and death. Panic pierced her. They spoke as if it were all true, these encounters illuminating their faces with a terror that tightened her throat. Late one night, drawn by an instinct she'd buried, Sarah left the cramped safety of the cabin. As she crept into the woods, the air thickened, and the shadows twisted, beckoning her into a hidden clearing, vast and terrifying, shrouded in fog. The night felt pregnant with the past, a weight of years and lost souls. Then, against her better judgment, she noticed it, the carved symbols. They echoed legends buried deep, warning of vengeful spirits forgotten by families that fled, just like hers. But something prickled the back of her neck. A breath, icy and alive, caressed her. She turned to face what wove between the trees, a flicker in the moonlight, a figure just out of reach. The scream choked in her throat. Panic rolled in waves, and as she sprinted back, she knew she had crossed into something unforgiving. What truly lurked within the shadows? What sought to claim them? The significance of her past now bled into her present, entwining with the ominous fate of Maple Hollow. Panic coursed through Sarah as she stumbled through the underbrush, branches clawing at her clothes like desperate hands. The darkness closed in around her, a suffocating pulse that beat in time with her racing heart. Each whispered word danced on the wind, echoing her fears. She rushed toward the cabin, limbs heavy with dread. Inside, the dim light flickered, casting erratic shadows against the walls. Her children were awake, eyes wide, waiting for her return. The circles under their eyes mirrored her own. They sensed it, too, the danger lurking just beyond the threshold. Sarah drew them into her arms, forming a fragile barrier against the horrors outside. What did you see? Lily, her youngest, asked, her voice quivering. It was nothing, honey, just the wind. But Sarah felt the lie clawing its way up her throat. She couldn't shake the image of that figure flitting through the trees, its presence woven into the very fabric of the night. The storm outside howled as if echoing her internal turmoil. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the figures of the trees. Their twisted forms seemed to contort, reaching toward her. In the flashes, she swore she saw faces, contorted with agony, mouths spoken into silent screams. They were begging for escape, for someone to hear their stories. Mom, Ben whispered, his boyish voice shaking, "Can we just leave?" The thought of leaving flickered through her mind, seductive and impossibly distant. But this cabin was supposed to be a sanctuary, a chance to rebuild. She gripped her children tighter. "I know it's hard. I promise we'll be okay." But deep down, she recognized the lie. She had no idea what awaited them out there. As midnight approached, a steady tapping echoed against the door. It was soft at first, almost rhythmic, a desperate plea masked in the howling winds. "Mom?" they chorused, their voices entwined with the eerie knock. "Stay here." Sarah's voice snapped, more forceful than she felt as she moved toward the front door. She steadied her breath, gripping the old handle. "Don't open it," Ben pleaded, his small hands pulling at her sleeves. "I have to see." But with every step closer to the door, a wave of dread surged through her veins. She gritted her teeth, fighting the terror screaming for her to flee. With a deep breath, she swung the door open, the gust of wind hitting her face like a slap. No one was there, just darkness and rain-soaked earth. She peered into the abyss, heart thrumming in her chest. Then she heard it again. A voice, faint and laced with sorrow. "Help us." It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Who's there?" she called, straining to catch a glimpse of the unknown. But the silence yawned back, deep and unending. Suddenly, a chilling thought slithered into her mind. What if the woods wanted something? What if they sought to claim her children, just like those lost souls? She slammed the door shut, her heart racing. "Mom!" Lily whimpered. "What did you hear?" Before Sarah could answer, a loud crack echoed outside, like thunder following an explosion. The ground trembled beneath her feet, and the walls vibrated. Shadows surged against the windows, swirling in a chaotic dance, and the temperature dropped as something ancient stirred. The children screamed, and Sarah felt fear clawing at her gut. The noise intensified, a symphony of despair and rage, demanding her attention. "Stay close," she shouted, pulling her kids against her as they backed away from the door. Their frightened eyes mirrored her own terror. What was it? Voices merging with the storm? What did they want? She felt trapped, the walls closing in as the sounds grew louder, more insistent. A chorus of souls caught in a relentless purgatory. With horror flooding her senses, she realized whatever had watched from the forest had now entered the realm of their home. "I have to find out," Sarah muttered, half to herself, half in resolve. She couldn't let this end without knowing. But as she turned toward the darkened windows, she felt a shift. What if the shadows were waiting? What if the cabin wasn't theirs anymore, but a vessel of something far more sinister? A figure stood beyond the trees, just at the edge of her vision, whispering secrets she dreaded to hear. What awaited her beyond the darkness? And would she and her children be able to escape its grasp? The shadows were alive. They pulsed and throbbed, twisting against the windows as if they were breathing, waiting for a moment of weakness to seep inside. Sarah's heart raced, thudding in her chest like a drum beat primed for disaster. Behind her, her children huddled, the warmth of their bodies providing a fleeting semblance of comfort amidst the encroaching dread. "Please," Mom. Ben's voice trembled. She could see the fright etched deeply in his small features. He was right to be scared. Whatever had stirred in the woods was no longer content with simply watching. It wanted something from them. Sarah hushed him softly. "Let us stay quiet." But silence had abandoned them, leaving only the cacophony of that chaotic storm, rising and falling like a tide threatening to drown them. The tapping began again, more insistent now, as if urging them to respond. It was different, there was a rhythm to it, like a sinister Morse code. Her skin prickled. She couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was outside was aware of her, watching and listened to their every breath. A flicker of lightning lit the room just then, and for a heartbeat, the world outside was illuminated. Sarah saw that figure again. Staring into the embrace of the trees, it stood still, a dark silhouette against the flickering flashes of light. Its features were indistinct, but she felt its eyes heavy and piercing fixated on her. "Mom, make them stop," Lily cried, clinging to her tighter, her breath hitching in fear. The tapping grew louder, more aggressive, each knock resonating through the thin wood of the cabin. "Stay with me," Sarah commanded, yet her voice quivered. She couldn't keep the uncertainty from creeping in. What if their sanctuary wasn't safe at all? Without thinking, she reached for the heavy iron poker by the fireplace. Its weight felt grounding, yet it also served as a reminder of her plight, the difference between survival and surrender. With her pulse pounding in her ears, she moved toward the window, peeking beyond its glass. The air shifted, cold and stale. In that moment, she knew something horrible was about to happen. As if answering her thoughts, the shadows surged forward, casting grotesque shapes against the walls. The house seemed to groan, an echo of its own agony. The furniture rattled, pictures fell off walls, and the room grew darker still. A gasp escaped her lips. The tapping turned into frenzied scratching, claws against wood. Then, with a startling crack, one of the windows shattered, glass raining down like confetti. "Run!" Sarah shouted, her voice breaking as she turned. They couldn't remain pinned inside a house possessed by the darkness. But as they moved, her legs felt anchored to the ground, the force of dread pulling her back as if the cabin wanted her to stay, to suffer, to succumb to whatever horrors lurked just outside their door. "Where do we go?" Ben cried out, panic overtaking him. What she wouldn't give for an escape route. The door, the only way out, stood as a sinister sentinel, blocked by ghostly noises and frantic shadows. "Out of here," she roared, determination boiling within her. She stumbled toward the open door, praying the cool night air would cleanse her of terror. With a final surge of energy, she wrenched the door open wide. Wind howled through the gap, carrying whispers that clawed at her sanity. "They want you, they want us." Stumbling forward, she shoved her children ahead of her, stepping into the night. Lightning illuminated the sinister forest around them. Felt alive, watching them, waiting. She barely felt the ground beneath her feet, desperation clouding her senses. "Mom, look!" Lily shouted, her tiny finger pointing into the shadows. In that moment, time froze. The woods throbbed with an unseen pulse. Something shifted within the darkness. A figure loomed just beyond the tree-line, impossibly close yet hidden in shadows. "Run!" Sarah screamed again, urgency spurring them forward, but a whisper danced across the wind, chilling her to the bone. "You can't escape." As they darted deeper into the embrace of the forest, the branches twisted and reached for them like bony fingers. Panic surged anew. Where could they find safety when their very surroundings seemed hell-bent on consuming them? Would the forest relent, or were they forever trapped in its clutch? Shadows flittered around her, beckoning and taunting as she fought to keep her children close. And yet, there was something that pulled at Sarah. A secret, some unseen horror waiting to unfurl, waiting for her to discover the truth behind the whispers. Branches snapped like brittle bones beneath their hurried steps. Sarah led her children deeper into the oppressive darkness, the scent of damp earth and rotting leaves heavy in the air. The whispers from the wind grew louder, curling around her thoughts, warping her perception of reality. There was no path, no obvious direction, just an ever-thickening veil of shadows that seemed to conspire against them. "Mom, I can't keep running," Ben panted, desperation lacing his voice as he stumbled over a root. "Just a little further," Sarah urged, fighting against the chill that settled in her bones. She turned back, scanning the trees. The figure was gone, but dread pricked at her skin. It was still there, lurking just beyond her view. Why is it chasing us? Lily whimpered, her eyes wide, full of innocence but burdened with terror. I don't know, Sarah replied, clenching her jaw. But we can't stop. We have to find help. Fear fueled their flight, but the forest conspired against them. Twisted vines reached out like fingers, snagging at their clothes. The soft earth turned to treacherous muck, sucking at their boots, and with every step, the sense of being watched intensified, an unseen presence that crackled with malice. The wind changed. It morphed into a low growl, something alive, gnashing teeth somewhere beyond sight. In that moment, Sarah recalled the town folklore about these woods' curses, lost souls, and creatures of darkness that thirsted for flesh. Had she unknowingly led her children into a nightmare her mind could barely grasp? Over there. Ben pointed to a faint glow in the distance, an inviting beacon of hope flickering amid the shadows. Sarah's heart soared before slamming back down. What if it was a trap? What if the moment they approached that light, they would be ensnared? Mom, please, Ben pressed, tugging at her sleeve. She searched their faces. Fear had drained the color from their cheeks. She nodded, steeling her resolve. Okay, we go there. Stay close. She pushed forward, desperation clawing at her throat. As they inched closer, the light grew dim. An old lantern, swinging mournfully from a twisted branch. It flickered, antagonizing her anxiety, casting erratic shadows that danced wildly in the underbrush. There was something horrifying in how the light trembled, as if it, too, feared the dark. Suddenly, movement caught Sarah's eye, a flash of dark fur. Too close, too fast. She froze. Get behind me, she shouted, spinning around to shield her children. Instinct surged as anger ignited within her, a protective fire amidst the chilling dread. The shadows wavered, growing darker, more tangible as they coalesced into horrifying forms, watching with malevolent glee. Who's there? She demanded, voice firm despite the tremors in her core. Silence swallowed her words. Then, one voice cut through, slow and deliberate, as if savoring every syllable. You shouldn't have come here, Sarah. You brought them to us. Panic boiled over. Her heart thundered in her chest as she clutched her children to her, each of them gasping at this unseen horror now looming, relentless. The creatures that writhed in the shadows weren't just figments of myth, no. They were real, hungry, and they desired more than just fear. Run! She screamed, more a primal instinct than a command. Behind her, she heard the rustle of branches and whispered laughter, the woods shaking with dark delight. With her children in tow, they sprinted through the chaos, the light fading behind them, the terrible satisfaction of the darkness ringing in their ears. But the whispers changed, transforming into a chant that echoed through the trees. You can never leave. Would they find a way out? Or was the forest now their eternal prison? As they plunged deeper into the darkness, another fear crept in. Was Sarah becoming something she feared more than the shadows? Something that wouldn't stop until it reclaimed them? And as the screams of the forest raged, a haunting realization emerged. Perhaps some dangers are drawn to the light, waiting for the moment they can snuff it out completely. Branches clawed at Sarah's arms as they barreled deeper into the forest, the oppressive darkness thickening around them like a living thing. Each step felt like a slide into a nightmare, the air charged with the desperate whispers that wrapped around her mind, taunting her. Where are we going? Ben's voice trembled, breaking the silence that hung like a suffocating blanket. Anywhere but here, she panted, pushing forward. The chant from the shadows twisted through the trees, a mocking echo that chilled her blood. You can never leave. It lingered in her ears, saturating her thoughts. Lily clutched Sarah's hand, her small fingers trembling. Mom, I'm scared. Sarah glanced over her shoulder, dread pooling in her stomach. The outline of something dark slithered just at the edge of her vision, a grotesque shape that flitted among the trees, never quite revealing itself but always there, an uninvited guest in their race against time. Concentrate on the path, she demanded, shaking her head as if to dispel the creeping shadows. Keep moving. They stumbled upon a small clearing, an unnerving silence blanketing the space. Moonlight filtered through the branches above, casting a ghostly glow on the ground. In the center sat an ancient stump, its gnarled surface etched with strange symbols, not of this world. The light seemed to hesitate around it, pulsing softly like the heart of the forest. "Mom?" Ben took a hesitant step towards it, curiosity fighting against the primal urge to run. "No, stay away from that," Sarah barked, fear clenched tight in her throat. Yet, as she spoke, a longing pulled at her, an urge to know what lay within those symbols. Suddenly, the wind shifted. The low growl returned, now mixed with a screech that sent ice through her veins. The shadows coalesced, swirling around the stump, forming into a more distinct figure. A woman, her eyes 3 black holes absorbing the moonlight and filling the air with bone-chilling despair. "You shouldn't have come, my darlin'," the woman hissed, her voice slithering through the air. "You're all lost now just like the others. Run!" Sarah shouted once more, seizing her children's wrists, and they took off again, hearts pounding in rhythm with their steps. The rushing wind howled behind them, carrying the woman's laughter, a sound that sank deep into the marrow of their bones. Branches twisted in their path, more aggressive now, as if the forest were alive and shaking with wrath. Every step felt like a lose-lose game against an endless enemy, watching, waiting. "Mom, what do we do?" Lily cried, her breath quickening, dread reflecting in her wide eyes. "Just keep moving." But inside, panic churned. How could she lead them to safety when the woods had become a maze of despair? Panic clutched at her chest, her mind racing with clipped thoughts. They had to find the way out. In the distance, a fire flickered, weak but existing. It was like a heartbeat, promising warmth amid the pervasive darkness. Yet Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that it was another trap. But there was no choice. They had to take the risk. As they neared the flickering light, Sarah felt a bitter chill crawl down her spine. What if it was a mere illusion, deceitful and designed to lure them into the clutches of the forest? But they were out of options, her fight against certainty dwindling to embers of hope. "Keep your eyes open," she ordered, scanning the area as they approached. Each step felt like an unraveling thread, the laughter of the woods creeping closer, teasing them with its malevolence. The fire grew larger, revealing a figure bent over it, shadowed and muttering incantations that twirled through the night like poisonous smoke. The air thickened, stinging Sarah's eyes, pouring doubt into her already battered soul. Then the fire flared, illuminating the figure, a man, grinning with predatory glee, eyes glistening with unholy delight. "Welcome, welcome," he crooned. "To our little haven you've brought us some guests." A jolt of terror drummed in her chest, her instincts roaring with urgency. At that moment she realized the darkness had claimed them, weaving its malevolent web tight around their hearts. They were caught in the grip of fear, and her children, her precious children, might be the next offerings to the hungry forest. "Run!" she screamed, the command bursting from her lips as they pivoted. Feeling the aura of the man's gaze bore into them. But even as they ran, the chanting began anew, mingling with the frenzied beat of her heart. "You can never leave," fear clawed at her throat once more. Would they find salvation or be lost to the forest forever? Just how deep did its hunger go? As night deepened, the answer slipped away, lost to the very shadows that seemed ready to engulf them. Branches whipped at their faces as they fled, sharp and unforgiving. Sarah felt the sting of leaves and twigs puncturing her skin, but there was no time to care. Every breath she drew quickened with primal fear, echoing the urgent thud of her heart. They had to escape. "Mom!" Ben's voice pierced the cacophony. "I can't see. It's too dark. Just keep running," she shouted back, refusing to let doubt seep into her resolve. They were close to the trees the man had been guarding, but every fiber in her being screamed that they couldn't outrun whatever had awakened in this cursed forest. The ground began to slope downward, mud sucking at their shoes, slowing them down. The whispering wind mocked them, and the shadows seemed to thicken with every anguished breath. Anxiety knotted in her stomach as she fought against the muddy terrain, dragging her kids with her. "Sarah!" Someone sang out, a warped blend of familiarity and menace. She knew that voice. It slithered through the night, oily and unnerving. "No," she growled, spinning around, expecting to see the figure of the woman with hollow eyes looming behind them. But there was nothing there. Just shadows consuming shadows. "Mom, please." Lily was stumbling, her small legs struggling to keep up. Sarah could feel her daughter's fear pulsing through their grip, like a lifeline and an anchor all at once. "I want to go home. Just a little farther, Lily. Please." The trees loomed over them like dark sentinels, twisting and curling as if trying to reach out for them, to pull them in. A flash of light flickered again, farther off now, beckoning like a false beacon of hope. What if it was another trap? What if they ran straight into the arms of darkness? "Mom!" Ben screeched, and Sarah turned just as she heard the snap of a twig. The darkness shifted behind him, a fold of black emerging from the trees like a tidal wave. "Run!" Sarah screamed again, adrenaline flooding her veins. She tightened her grip on her kids and pushed forward, desperate to shatter the hold the forest had on them. They stumbled into yet another clearing, the damp air thick with a more pungent smell decay. The ground was littered with remnants of the forest's last victims. Old clothing, a shattered doll's head, bones. No, 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 her breath came in shaky gasps. But they had come too far to give in now. She wanted to shield her children from the horror but knew the dark truths were now unavoidable. They halted, gazing wildly for anything to help them escape. Behind them, the chant grew louder, an insistent pulse of despair. "You can never leave, over there," Ben shouted, pointing to an old stone path, barely visible through the underbrush. It looked promising. "Let us go." Sarah yanked them toward the path, each step filling her with a desperate hope. Yet, something primal in her warned they weren't alone. Suddenly, the trees shuddered, and the laughter returned, higher, more frantic. The shadows began to press against them, threatening to crush any chance of salvation. The man from the fire reappeared, his grin a gaping maw that threatened to swallow them whole. "You can't escape the truth of this place," he hollered, his voice weaving through the trees. "You'll understand soon enough, just like all the others." Sarah's heart raced as the shadows surged forward, and something cold and sharp grazed her leg. She felt an unnatural pull, the forest pulling her ever closer into its dark embrace. "No!" she yelled, tightening her grip on her children as they stumbled back against the thick bark of a tree. Their breath came in frantic bursts. In the eerie stillness, she could almost hear the heartbeat of the forest, their fear giving it the strength to live. "Mom! Help!" Lily cried, her eyes wide with terror as the dark figure drifted closer, hungry and relentless. With one last desperate glance back at the menacing shadows looming around them, Sarah realized they had to confront the edge of despair itself or succumb altogether. "Face the darkness," she cried out, summoning every ounce of strength within her. "We will not be lost." As they began to push, against the shadows anchoring them down, a deafening roar erupted, shaking the very trees they clung to. What had they awakened? The trees groaned, buckling as the ground beneath them trembled, revealing a chasm of darkness that echoed with screams of void where even nightmares dare not tread. "We can't stop," Sarah shouted, lunging forward into the void as it beckoned like a siren's call, dragging her and her children toward its depths. But in that final, split-second realization of what they might find, she knew her scream would not be their last. The forest had chosen its next offering, and they were deeper in its clutches than they ever could have feared. What awaited them in the darkness? Would they become another memory lost to the trees? As they plunged into the chasm, the air thickened around them, swirling with the scent of wet earth and rot. Sarah held her breath, straining to see in the dark, but shadows danced just beyond her reach, slithering like smoke. "Mom, I can't feel the ground," Ben cried, panic slicing through his voice. "We're okay. Just grab onto my arm. Keep moving." With her heart pounding, Sarah urged her children onward, each step an act of defiance against the suffocating darkness. They stumbled forward, trusting in a flicker of light that appeared ahead, an elusive promise they needed to believe. But the closer they got, the more the world around them twisted. The light, once steady, flickered like a dying flame, playing cruel tricks on their minds. Clarity gave way to confusion, and soon it felt like she walked through a surreal nightmare. Then she heard a low, guttural growl that rumbled through the air like thunder, sending chills cascading down her spine. Her blood ran cold as she turned toward the sound, realizing the entity from the fire was right behind them, its shape distorted by the shadows, sliding closer like a predator stalking its prey. "We have to hurry," she urged, fear carving lines into her face. "Why can't we just go back?" Ben pleaded, his voice trembling. "Do you really think we'd survive that?" The truth hit her hard, freezing her words in her mouth. There was no safe path back. This forest had twisted into a labyrinth with no exit, and whatever hunted them was growing bolder. The ground quaked again, a terrible heartbeat that echoed in their ears as they reached the edge of the pool of light. It illuminated a stone altar, grotesque and ancient, draped with remnants that could only belong to the forest's past sacrifices. Sarah's stomach churned at the sight, but a whisper echoed in her mind, "This is your only chance." "Mom!" Lily squeaked, pulling at her sleeve. The desperation etched in her eyes sent a surge of protectiveness through Sarah. Before she could respond, the altar's surface shimmered, pulling her focus back to the light, which now morphed into a figure, hazy and unclear. A woman stood there, but her eyes were voids, deep and endless. "Join us," the figure cooed, her voice sweet yet unfathomably sinister. "You'll belong." "No," Sarah spat, shaking her head fiercely. "We're not staying here." The laughter filled the air again, no longer distant but close enough to carry weight. It filled her heart with dread and robbed her of reason, bouncing around them like echoes in a hollow chamber. "Run!" Sarah screamed, and they bolted from the altar, pushing back against the force anchoring them in place. But the shadows whipped wildly, scattering the forest like a tempest. Ben faltered, slipping on a muddy patch, and Sarah nearly tumbled too as she yanked him back by his wrist. The darkness lunged at them, tendrils reaching out to grab them, but Sarah pushed the fear aside, focusing on the light ahead that now pulsed in urgency, almost alive. With every ounce of strength, she shoved her way through, the air thickening, growing heavy as they pressed toward the vulnerability of that radiant beacon. The primal instinct to survive ignited a fire within her. "Stay together," she cried, lungs burning. "Keep fighting." And just as they reached the edge of the light, a handsomely devastating roar split the air, filling their minds with dread. As they crossed into brightness, it faded, like a candle snuffed out, leaving them gasping in darkness. They found themselves not back in the forest, but in an empty void, where the shadows whispered secrets too chilling to understand. "Mom, where are we?" Lily's voice was fragile, trembling with confusion. "Stay close," Sarah said, uncertainty creeping in. They clung to each other, but the feeling of being watched settled in like a weight on her chest. A flash of memory jolted back faces twisted in despair, horror that mirrored their own. "You will never leave," they whispered, the voices of the lost merging into a haunting chorus around them. As the darkness pressed in, suffocating all hope, a sudden chill swept over Sarah, freezing time itself. What is happening?" she breathed, as the shadows began to swirl around them once more, and she realized with a gut-wrenching terror that their fate was just beginning to unfold. Because in this cruel realm of darkness, the past was never truly buried. What else awaited them in those hidden corners? Cloaked in shadows? What would they have to sacrifice to escape? The stillness wrapped around them like a suffocating blanket, and Sarah felt her pulse quicken as dread seeped into her bones. The whispers intensified, rising and falling like a tidal wave of despair. She could almost make out words, disjointed pleas and cries for help, but they morphed into an unsettling murmur that drowned out any semblance of reason. "Mom, I want to go home," Lily murmured, her tiny body trembling next to Sarah. "Me too, honey," Sarah replied, forcing a steadiness into her voice. "But we need to keep moving." A sudden flash flickered amongst the shadows, a movement so rapid it left her breathless. It felt like an omen, a grotesque warning brushing past her. And then, in the shifting darkness, something loomed, a towering figure, cloaked in the very shadows that consumed them. Its form was indistinct, fluid yet menacing, a monstrous tapestry woven from their worst fears. "Everything will be yours if you remain." The voice was deeper now, surrounding them, creeping like smoke. "A family that stays forever." Ben clutched at his mother's arm, his grip like steel. "Mom, it's not real." His voice cracked but was laced with that stubborn bravery children muster in terrible situations. "I know," Sarah whispered, eyes scanning the encroaching darkness, searching for a way out. "We have to fight it." Another tremor shook the air, sending vibrations through the dim void. The shadows curled tighter around them, wrapping her children in the grasp of a dark promise. "Join us." The flickering light they had chased began to flare again, revealing paths that branched into nothingness. She caught flashes of more dreadful figures, gaunt faces marred by anguish, eyes glazed in despair. They looked familiar, almost like echoes of people lost to time. "Mom, what if we never get out?" Ben's voice was barely above a whisper, thick with fear. "Then we fight," Sarah barked, raising her chin defiantly, though inside, the remnants of her own confidence were crumbling. "We're not meant to be here." "Join us," came the whisper again, languid and thick, melding with the rustling shadows, a sound designed to lure, to seduce, promising warmth in the face of endless icy darkness. "No," Sarah yelled, her voice resonating in the void, pushing back against the temptation. "We choose to leave." With a determination forged from sheer necessity, she pulled her children along, ignoring the shadowy fingers that grazed her skin, icy tendrils beckoning her back. Desperation surged within her. Just then, a scream pierced the air, raw and visceral, a sound not unrecognizable. It was the sound of loss, of someone who had given in. "Let me go." The voice was haunting, a sharp contrast to the soft seduction loving promised by the figures in the dark. "Mom!" Lily screamed, her voice splintering. And then the figure, once merely a silhouette, lunged toward them, revealing a gaping maw where no true face should be. Its jagged teeth glimmered with primal hunger as the void pulsed with shadows that seemed to breathe. The air thickened with fear, choking them. "Keep moving," Sarah shouted, dragging her children away from the nightmarish countenance. They stumbled blindly, but each step propelled them deeper into the twisted maze. Suddenly, the flickering light surged once more, basking them in glimmers of hope, if only for an instant. It felt alive and pulsed with the energy of a heartbeat. Sarah squinted, searching desperately for the exit, and for a moment doubted the very solidity of the darkness that pursued them. But in that same breath, dread crept back as the shadows seemed to congeal into a powerful wave, pushing them back like a riptide. "Faster! Move!" As they barely escaped the lunging void behind them, Sarah dared to think of freedom. The flickering light expanded, enveloping them. But just before they reached it, the haunting chorus returned, louder now, filled with malice and triumph. "You can't escape what you are." A crack appeared in her resolve, and suddenly fear was a palpable thing, clawing at her from the inside. Would they ever be free, or was this just the beginning of their torment? As the light pulsed, it dimmed just enough for Sarah to see the faces surrounding them, children, mothers, trapped souls, all pleading with her. But what would it take for them to break free? Would they have to sacrifice someone? The question slashed through her mind, sharper than any shadow, and as they barreled towards the light, the figures closed in around them. The very fabric of her being screamed that the worst was yet to come. What price would she pay to save her children from the dark? The light flickered again, its pulse now an urgent heartbeat that drew them ever closer. Yet the shadows clawed at their backs like a vengeful mob. Sarah could feel the cold breath of the figures behind them, tasting their fear, and for every step she took toward salvation, the threats multiplied, filling the air with bitter growls of discontent. "Mom, I can't see," Ben cried, his small legs struggling to keep up. Panic gripped Sarah's heart. Her kids were losing hope. "Just hold on to me. I won't let go." Her voice surged above the fray, a protective shield against despair. The path twisted, tangling them in darker corners, where the whispers grew more frantic, mocking her bravery. You'll never escape. No family can resist in that moment. A desperate idea took seed in Sarah's mind. Maybe, just maybe, these demons thrived on their fears, their doubts. We must believe, she shouted, her words punctuated by urgency. Believe we can leave this place. With every sentiment she projected, shadows momentarily recoiled, flickering in sync with the tremulous light. The faces around them shifted. Terror blended with incredulity. I believe, Ben shouted back, his voice bold, coaxing Lily to join. Yes, we believe, Lily echoed, her faith kindling against the darkness. The shadows shrunk, a slight retreat, but they could feel the rage boiling beneath their surface. It screeched and seethed in the air. Fools! The demonic voice bellowed, a cacophony of anger and anguish. You'll pay for your defiance. They stumbled forward, propelled by an unseen force, each straining breath louder than the last as the light surged dimly ahead. Sarah's heart raced if they could just reach it. But in the distance, she glimpsed something else. A figure, tall and towering, stepped from the shadows. It was like a dark sentinel, its blank eyes pierced through the desperate shape of her family. A chilling epiphany gripped her. This was not merely an escape, but a confrontation. Turn back. The voice rang like thunder, rattling her bones. You have no idea what awaits you. Sarah's resolve intensified. She tightened her grip on her children's hands, pulling them forward. She could almost sense the tangible barrier separating them from the light, such unbearable temptation. But then, an arm reached out from the shadows, grasping Ben's ankle. He fell, the scream leaving his mouth like a candle flickering out. Ben! Sarah rushed to pull him up, her heart pounding. The figure hadn't just stretched a hand. It was woven from the same darkness, sent to ensnare them. Let him go, she screamed, her voice trembling yet fierce. He is ours. The moment hung thick with tension. The shadow hesitated, drawn back by her sheer will. She began to pull Ben closer, desperate, when a whisper curled back to her, wrapping around her heart, and the world around her felt like it shifted. There's a price to pay for freedom, Mom. I feel it, Lily whimpered, her young face twisted in fear. It's cold. It's pulling me. The darkness surged with life, a tide thundering against her resolve. Suddenly, Sarah felt a weight pressing down, as if the very ground beneath her was ready to open up and swallow them whole. Sacrifices must be made. The shadows chorused, their voices melding into a horrific symphony. Get up, Ben. Get up, she commanded, fire igniting in her chest. But the shadows were relentless. What will you give? The voice taunted, a low growl that threatened to crush them. As Sarah looked into the panicked eyes of her children, desperation poured through her. She couldn't lose them. They had to escape. But at what cost? And as the shadows crept closer, intent on dragging them back, the sickening truth settled over her. Would she have to make the ultimate choice to save them from this insatiable darkness? Just then, the ground beneath them tore open, revealing an abyss so deep that Sarah's breath caught. The last wisps of hope wavered like a dying flame. Would they be consumed by the shadows? Or could there be another path, one that neither of them saw? As the void widened, the darkness laughed, a chilling blend of triumph and hunger. In that moment, all of Sarah's resolve teetered on the edge of despair. What would she sacrifice to ensure her children's survival? If they were to find a way out, what horrifying truth would they have to confront? The void widened beneath them, revealing a darkness darker than any night Sarah had ever known. Instinctively, she scooped Ben into her arms, Lily clutching desperately at her side. Cold air rushed up from the abyss, filling their lungs with dread, and time seemed suspended, echoing with the whispers of the lost. What do we do? Ben's voice quivered, understanding the gravity of their situation, but unable to comprehend its full weight. Sarah scanned their surroundings. Faces swirled in the shadows, eyes wide with unshed tears and longing. Her heart felt like 1,000 needles piercing it all at once. She understood now the forest thrived on despair, using fear as its lifeblood. "Stay close," she hissed, her voice tight with urgency. "I won't let them take you." But the shadows gathered more forcefully, crawling closer, desperation slithering around their ankles like the roots of a tree intent on gripping them tight. "You can't escape the sacrifice," they murmured, a chant that throbbed in her soul. "What sacrifice?" Sarah demanded, fire igniting within her. "I'll do anything. Just tell me." The shadows laughed, high and terrible, echoing in the very fibers of the universe. "You seek to save your children, but what will you give in return?" She grasped Ben and Lily tighter, their small frames comforting yet infuriatingly fragile. "I'd give my life for them," she shouted into the gathering darkness. "I'd give anything." The ground shifted beneath her, grating like unyielding stone. "What if it's more than just a life?" The shadows twisted, forming hazy, grinning faces, malign and hungry. "Our hunger runs deeper, and we will take what we need." Fear settled heavy in the pit of her stomach. All around them, the forest seemed to conspire, branches cracking like violent applause, relishing her strife. "No, I won't let you have them." But the darkness surged, drawing nearer. The distorted chant grew louder, the words wrapping around them like chains. "One must be left behind. A choice must be made." A sob clawed its way from Sarah's throat. "Please, just let us go. They've done nothing wrong." The shadows pulsed, swirling around her feet like a tempest, as confusion morphed into clarity. "Your love has brought you here. Love is a powerful weapon but also a weakness. To be free one must remain." Sarah's mind raced. The cost loomed, a choice more agonizing than she could bear. As the shadows writhed and howled, she felt the pull toward the void to save her children. Would she have to stay behind? The darkness flickered with an ominous glow. She turned to Ben and Lily, their faces mirroring fear, yet igniting a fierce determination within her heart. When she saw the flickering light again, just beyond the abyss, felt warmer, inviting. "I will sacrifice myself," she whispered, breath catching in her throat. "To save you both, I will do it. I will face the darkness alone." "No, Mom," Lily wept, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Don't say that. I can't let them have you. You are my everything." Sarah turned, her heart breaking, but there was no other choice. "You have to run. Get to the light." Ben shook his head, clinging to her like a lifeline. "We won't leave you. We can fight it together. The forest doesn't want to fight. It demands a sacrifice, and that sacrifice has to be me." The shadows lashed out, and she could feel their hunger clawing at the edges of her being. Suddenly, a rush of clarity swept through Sarah, ignited by an enduring love. "They may want me, but they will never have my love. You must stay together and remember me. You carry me in your hearts. I can protect you from here." In that moment, the shadows paused, their laughter replaced by sulking whispers. "Is that your final choice?" they hissed, darkness swirling with each word. "Yes. Take me, but leave my children," Sarah shouted, resolve blossoming within her. "Then it is done," the shadows intoned, a sinister satisfaction evident in their voices. As the dark tendrils surged toward her, she did not resist. For the first time, she felt a calmness, wrapping around her like a soft embrace. "Go, my loves. Find the light," Sarah cried, shoving her children forward. The shadows enveloped her, swallowing her screams, her pleas fading into the abyss, the essence of who she was, wrapped in love, ready to protect her children. Ben and Lily stumbled back, caught in the remnants of their mother's embrace before sprinting toward the light, its warmth enveloping them like a promise. They could hear their mother's voice still slicing through the din, urging them on. "Believe. You can escape this place." As they dashed toward the radiant glow, they felt her presence beside them, strength rising in their rear. And in that moment, they could hear the whispers dissipating, the chains of darkness unraveling as they crossed the threshold into the blinding light. The shadows screeched in fury, but Sarah's sacrifice was a beacon, sending waves of protection washing over her children, lifting them further from the grasp of despair. And as they stepped beyond the edge into the realm of safety, Ben and Lily held hands tightly, hearts beating as one, knowing they would carry forth their mother's love, forever her final gift not of surrender, but of hope and light. They emerged into the first hint of dawn, the forest behind them fading into mere memories. A new world awaited, a future alive with promise, resilience, and the legacy of a mother who faced the overwhelming dark for them. As the first rays of sun broke through, they cried together, tears of loss mingling with those of relief, sheltered now by the truth that love knew no bounds. They would keep shining her light. They would honor her sacrifice, together always. And as long as they remembered her, the forest would never stand a chance of reclaiming her spirit. Now it was time to move forward, to embrace the world alive with possibility, where love would shine even brighter than before. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support, and don't wait even one more second to share this video. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this thrilling conclusion. And instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this gripping finale.